up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a tutorial style based video. I'm going to be going through 3 exercises to help you guys achieve your freestanding handstand push-up. And this one is going to be more beginner level based, and then intermediate and advanced will be to follow. So if you guys like today's video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll get right into it. So to start off, before we get right into the handstand push-up exercises, I'm going to say in terms of prerequisites, I do recommend you guys be able to hold a solid handstand for around 10 to 15 seconds. Primarily, this is because as you get into your handstand push-up, you just want to make sure that you have a balance point first before you start to go down into the push-up and then head back up into handstand. Another prerequisite I would say is to be able to do at least 20 to 30 push-ups. This is just mainly because it's your pushing strength. So if you don't have the base of just regular push-ups, doing a handstand push-up is going to feel a lot harder. And then lastly, also being able to overhead press around 70% of your weight for 8 to 10 reps. So for me, I'm right now 113. So ideally I should be pressing around 35 to 40 pounds for about 8 to 10 reps in order to get a handstand push-up relatively easily and on a good track in terms of progress. So the first exercise we're going to go over to help achieve your handstand push-up is going to be the Pike Pushup. So it's a regression in terms of a handstand push-up. So it's going to be similar in terms of hand positioning. So we do want our hands just slightly wider than our shoulders. This is going to make it a little bit easier, purely just because the wider your hands are, the range of motion decreases. I wouldn't go anything crazy, like don't go way out here, just slightly wider than your shoulders. We're going to focus on getting our bum nice and high. The more compressed you are, the harder it's going to be. So you can always start out a little bit more spaced at the beginning. We're going to aim to have our nose hit the floor, or if that's too difficult, we can always tuck our head and it'll be our head tapping the floor. When it comes to our elbow positions, similar to a push-up, we do want them just slightly tucked to avoid any wrist injury or shoulder injury going into our push-up. So here are our hands. We're going to go down there and be slightly tucked under. We're not pushing straight out. If you were to do a handstand push-up this way, you're going to feel a tremendous amount of weight going this way through your wrist, which is going to cause a little bit of sharp pain and potentially, injuring your wrists. So we do just want to make sure that precautionary tuck is there. Now, when it comes to positioning, you'll notice when I go down into my Pike push-up, I'm going down on a 45 degree and coming back up on a 45 degree. So main thing that I always see with new clients trying this one is we'll go down on a 45, but then you'll try to come up and go this way rather than following the same path, going up and down at a 45. So a simple analogy to remember that is think of an escalator and not an elevator. We want to be going this way in our handstand push-up and as well as our Pike push-up. So if you're doing the Pike push-up and you're finding them a little bit difficult, we can always regress this movement into a negative. So you would start again in that same Pike push-up position. You would only go on the way down, bend your knees, reset, and come all the way back up. So this one is just to help work the negative of the Pike push-up. As soon as that becomes easier, then you can start to push your way back up. A progression, so if this becomes too easy, we can also elevate our feet. So I'm just using dumbbells today, but as you get more experience, you can use dumbbells, risers, and eventually a box until we're actually into that full handstand. So feet go on the dumbbells, slightly elevated to create a deficit. Exact same technique, we're gonna head down, ideally nose to floor, pushing straight back up and back down. So as I'm going through the push-up as well, I'm keeping my core nice and tight, and I'm thinking about locking out my shoulders as well as squeezing into the floor to help imitate when you're actually in your handstand, because those two things are gonna help catch your handstand on the way up so we're not falling in and out of our handstand push-up. Second exercise we're going to go through today is going to be the neutral grip shoulder press. So you can do this one in various ways. Today I'm going to be doing it seated, but you can also do it seated on the ground in a straddle position, which requires a little bit more core. You can also do it with the bench that has a back support, which will make it a little bit easier. And you can also do this one standing, which again will make it a little bit harder for that core support, core engagement. We're going to start off with our hands just slightly in front of us, resting the dumbbells on our shoulders. Our arms aren't going to be wide because that would be a regular press. Neutral, we're going to bring them in front of us. We're going to extend all the way up to our ears. Think of like locking out as if you were in a handstand, so nice tight core, bringing it down. You will notice that when I extend upwards, I do push my head through nice and tight and then come back down a little bit more neutral. This is purely just to imitate what it would be like in a handstand. So we're gonna push up, tight, bring it down, rest on the shoulders, and all the way up and back down. So for this one will be a little bit of a lighter weight, so don't worry if your weight isn't around that 70-80% for the rep range. This one can be a little bit less just because it's a little bit of a harder variation of a shoulder press. So for this one, for instance, I usually do around 30 pounds and I try to hit a 10 to 12 mark. So it is a little bit less than that 35-40 than I would typically do for the wide grip press. Moving on to our last exercise, which is going to be the handstand push-up negative. I'm going to show you guys two different variations today. It's going to be a wall-assisted tummy side as well as a freestanding. Now, these ones are pretty much equal in terms of difficulty. The one against the wall is a little bit harder because it does force that 45-degree, whereas the one freestanding, you can kind of have control of how fast you descend. So in terms of like strength, if you're a little bit weaker, you'll descend a lot faster, making it an easier exercise, versus the wall, there's a little bit more control, which will force you to be a little bit more in that 45 for a little bit longer. So first I'm going to show you the wall one. Again, it's going to be tummy side. We're going to start ourselves further than we normally would for like a wall assisted handstand, primarily because we do want that 45-degree. So hands are going to be slightly wider than shoulders, kicking up to the wall. We want our toes tucked so it's nice and easy to slide up and down. We're going to have our tummies nice and tight, bums squeezed. We're going to descend into the handstand push-up, focusing on those elbows, nose to floor, and then come on down. So another reason why we want to be pretty far away from the wall is because if you are someone who's lacking mobility, coming down in a tucked position might feel a little bit harder. So I'll show you an alternative way to come down. You'd basically kick up, tuck those toes again, come down to the negative, and we'd step off to the side. So in terms of stepping off to the side, just pick your dominant side. Don't try to go both sides, make it equal. Just do the safe side first, or the safest side when you're coming down from that handstand. So for the wall, one thing I really want you guys to focus on is how tight your core stays going down the wall. One thing you do want to avoid is just arching your back. So if we're here, as you start to come down, if you start to arch and sink into the wall, safely exit and restart and kind of reposition yourself a little bit better into a position where you can kind of keep that core maintained a little bit easier. So coming up into the handstand, again, engaging those glutes, squeezing your bum, keeping core engaged so I'm not arching my back, I'm not piking my hips, stay nice and tight, all the way down, exit off to the side. So this one is one that I prefer over a backside handstand. Main reason is for a backside handstand negative push-up, you're gonna have a big arch in your back. So I'll show you that, guys, show you that as well. So we're gonna go picking up this way. If I were to do a negative, I'm automatically already in an arch position. So going down is gonna feel super awkward and it's not gonna look anything like a real handstand push-up. So I know a lot of you guys will be like, oh, I see CrossFitters do handstand push-ups this way. I see people who are just like learning handstand push-ups this way. This is not recommended in my opinion. If you're someone who's scared to fall over, I'm gonna show you guys the floor assisted version instead. I know I said floor assisted, I really just meant like the floor handstand. So this version is gonna be kicking up to our handstand. So again, that 10 to 15 second hold is gonna be important for this one. Kicking up, we're gonna slowly descend into a handstand push-up negative, catch ourselves with our feet, and then complete the push-up and come back up. So this one is a really good conditioning exercise as well in terms of just learning your handstand push-up. So we're gonna come up, hands up, going into it. We're gonna slowly come down, catch yourself, and then come back up. Now the reason why this one is a little bit easier than the wall one is mainly because as you're coming down, you have control of how fast you're descending. And if you need to, quote unquote, bail out of it a little bit faster, our feet are there to catch you and end up in a nice low push-up position and to extend back up into that push-up. So for instance, if we're extending or descending, sorry, a little bit fast, you drop, our feet will catch us and we'll come back up. Ideally for this one, you wanna think of your negatives always being between 3 to 5 seconds, so that's the wall one included as well. Trying to go down as slow as you can for 3 to 5 counts and extending back up nice and strong. So key points for this one as well, same thing, we wanna keep our core nice and tight so we're not arching or cobraing, especially on that end push-up. So this is one that is not a good version of it. So if we came up to our handstand and we started to arch and then arch the push-up back up, our core isn't engaged at all. We wanna make sure we're nice and tight. On the flip side, if we're piked, it's also not gonna be in a good position for a handstand push-up either. So going up, if we're piking our hips, we're gonna fall a lot faster, and then we're gonna pike up and it's not gonna be as strong in the handstand portion or in the push-up position. Again, for this one, you really wanna focus on that 45-degree. So as I'm coming down from my handstand, you're gonna notice that my feet slightly drop and my shoulders come down, and I'm aiming for, again, that nose to floor, and my head is way in front of my hands. So ideally, think of a handstand push-up as a tripod position. Your 2 hands, and then your head is right here. So quick little variation again. As I come down, creating that tripod, catching myself, and extending back up. And that is the third and final drill. So finishing off the drills, we're gonna go through some practice of how to incorporate your handstand push-ups into your routine. So I recommend only practicing around 1 to 2 times a week, especially if you're a beginner, only because you don't wanna overwork your wrists or your shoulders. So any of these drills that we work today can either be done post leg day when you haven't worked your upper body, or you can sub them in during your upper body days, specifically your shoulder days. So I like to usually superset, say, a shoulder press with a lateral raise. So I can do the neutral grip shoulder presses and then do a lateral raise. If it's something like the negatives, I would superset a negative as well as a core exercise because those complement each other nicely, especially for handstand conditioning. So that's it for in terms of programming. If you're someone who struggles with wrist mobility, so if it hurts to be on your wrists for too long, I do recommend doing these exercises on P-bars. This allows for, again, a more stacked position, which is a little bit safer on your wrists, and allows you to practice it that 1 to 2 times a week in order to see progress, but again, not to hurt yourself. So hopefully you guys liked today's video. If you guys wanted to see more detailed programming, I do have my app where there's a full handstand push-up program on there, a calisthenics program, as well as other handstand programs if you're someone who's just trying to learn your handstand in general. So if you guys like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you guys next time.